Alright, and welcome to our SLO review. We're going to call this round 1. SLO review 1. Now, notice that in every single problem in this assignment, it will say round to the nearest hundredth, and I want to show you what that looks like, so I'm going to completely work out this first problem with you. We have solve for x using the appropriate trig ratio, and whenever using trigonometry, we know we always start by labeling. So I draw my arrow, which points to my hypotenuse. I circle my angle, which means that this side here on the base must be my adjacent, and our third side by default will always be the opposite. Now from here, what are we going to do? Well, let's go ahead and write this out. SOHCAHTOA. And guys, this is just a great way for you to memorize which trigonometric function you need. When I look at my triangle, I notice that the hypotenuse, the h, has the 13, the opposite, or the o, has an x, but our adjacent really has nothing. So I like to cross that out. Now from here, we have our opposite and our hypotenuse. When I look at SOHCAHTOA, well, I look for the one that has the o and the h. And this is telling us that we want to use this s, which stands for the sine of theta. So guys, why do we use SOHCAHTOA? It's just a nice, easy thing for you to memorize. Just say SOHCAHTOA, alright? And then when you memorize that, it can really help you remember, oh, should I use sine, cosine, or tangent? Now here we're going to use sine, and then we see the next thing is the o, so we have the opposite over the h, which is the hypotenuse. And now let's plug in everything we have. So I'm going to say, you know what, we have the sine of, and our angle is quite clearly this 41. And we're going to say, you know what, that is equal to the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. Well, our opposite is the x, and our hypotenuse is the 13. Now from here, guys, how do we get the, what's our first step always? Always, we're going to multiply by what's on the bottom. Since 13 is on the bottom, I multiply both sides by 13. And now we have this. We now have 13 sine of 41 equals x. And notice that the x is by itself. Here we get to stop. This is the easy version. Okay, so what do we do here? Well, 13 times the sine of 41. I just pull up my Desmos scientific calculator. I've kind of shrunk it down for you guys. And we'll just say, okay, 13 times the sine of 41. And we see here that that is, and I want to highlight it, it's 8.528. Now notice the 2 is in the hundredths position, so we always look one digit past, and that 8 rounds the 2 up to a 3. So I say 8.53 is equal to my x. And that's considered going out to the hundredths place. Alright guys, I'm going to do two more of these. I'm actually going to do problem 3, and I'm going to do problem 5, but I'm only going to do them so far as I need to help you get them set up. Okay, for problem 3, it says round the answer to the nearest hundredth, and it says solve for x. Well guys, we go ahead and do all of our normal moves. We draw our arrow, which points to the hypotenuse. I circle my relevant angle, which means that this x is the adjacent. And of course, my third side by default is the hypotenuse. I also notice just right here, the hypotenuse has no relevant information. Now I want you to try and guess, what is our saying? What do we want to say? We want to say SOHCAHTOA. And remember, this O has the 23, so we're looking for things with an O, and this A has an X, so we're looking for O and an A. We are looking for TOA. So the question becomes, well, what does that T stand for? And the T stands for the tangent theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. Now let's plug in all the things that we know. We know that our angle is 32. So I write, okay, tangent of 32 is equal to, the opposite is 23 over, and our adjacent is x. Think back to our last problem. How do you get rid of the thing on the bottom? Well, what do we get rid of? Well, we always get rid of the thing on the bottom first. Here, there's an x, so I multiply both sides times x. Now notice when I write out my next line, I actually have x tangent of 32 is equal to 23, notice that the x is not by itself yet. So here, this is the case where we have to go one step further, and we're going to divide both sides by the tangent of 32. Divide by the tangent of 32. And so here, you get to go to your calculator. Now remember, all of these are being rounded to the nearest hundredth. So I've got 23 divided by the tangent of 32. Oh, by the way, a lot of y'all have been mistakenly putting this in radians. Look, see how it says degrees here in the middle? If I click, it says rad, R-A-D. No, that's going to give you the wrong answer. So make sure you're always setting your calculator to degrees. Alright guys, and so it looks like the answer here is 36.807. Because I'm going out to the hundredths place, I always look out one digit further. And it turns out this 7 is going to change that 0 into a 1. Remember this from elementary school? 5 or more raise the score. So anytime we have a number that's 5 or higher, we're going to round our number up by 1. Okay, so 36.81 is our answer. Alright, well guys, let's go ahead and move on to our next example. And pause this, finish taking any notes as you need to. Okay, now here's problem 5, and I just want to show you problem 5 because it looks a little bit different. Here you're not given everything, so I'm actually going to illustrate what I want you to do, the student, at home. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to draw this shape. If you do not draw this shape, you're not going to be able to do this correctly. You want to put the letters A, B, and C, and it says AB is perpendicular to BC. That's how we know it's a right angle. We know that AC is 25 units, and CAB, so I start from C, I go to A, I go to B, that's that angle right there, is 42. And we want to find the measure of BC, so I put an X. There's a lot of you who try to do this in your head, and if you do that, you're not going to be successful. Now let's go ahead and go through our problem. I draw my arrow, which points to the hypotenuse. I circle my relevant angle, which gives me the adjacent. And of course, the X is my opposite. Following along with the same routine, you tell me, what's our saying? Yeah, it's so, ka, toa. And here, wait a second, we have the hypotenuse, which is 8. We have the X and the O, which is the opposite, and we really don't care about the adjacent. So in this case, the H and the O, we're going to use so again, or in this case, we'll say the sine theta is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So this one's kind of like our very first problem. Now, by the way, let's talk about just the initial setup. We know our theta is sine of the angle. The angle was 42. Really like this neon green, by the way. Sine 42 is equal to, and our opposite was x over 25, the hypotenuse. Alright guys, it is up for you to finish this one out on your own. And guys, I'll see y'all in our next lesson.